stores, EPS keyloggers, and so on and so forth. You will see how all these things will play a role later on throughout the course. But for the time being, you have SQL injections, which simply passing SQL queries to HTTP requests. If they are not properly formatted by the PHP code on the server side, this can present a serious problem. And this is always one of the primary consideration of all the web developers out there. Later on, I will demonstrate how you can use these, formulate them, and there is a large amount of websites that are vulnerable out there, primarily because the frameworks on which they're based are vulnerable as well. Next up, you have virtual private networks, so VPNs. These are ways of anonymizing yourselves. Basically, if you have a VPN provider somewhere, and if you want to anonymize yourself, you will route all their traffic through this VPN provider, and all the traffic between you and the VPN provider will be heavily encrypted. So any other server out there that is receiving requests from you, it is actually receiving them from VPN. There is no real way of detecting you or finding your physical location unless the VPN provider actually gives it up, which doesn't really happen if you pick a right one. Down below you have proxies. Now proxies are a less reliable way of staying anonymous, but you should always make it your common practice to use SOCKS 5 proxies. I will explain what these are. I will introduce them when we do proxy chains and when I explain to you how you can actually stay anonymous while conducting these sort of activities. You will realize that you can route your connection through several proxies, but very soon you will see as well that that doesn't always work. I mean, in the movies or something like that, you see people going through 10, 20 different proxies. In reality, that would be very, very difficult to implement, primarily because of internet speeds, because of the available bandwidth. Most of the free proxies out there are not very fast, and routing your connection through several of them will make it very difficult for you to do anything in a reasonable amount of time. There are of course paid proxies, but when you pay a proxy, you leave a digital footprint somewhere so you can be traced. Down below you have Tor. Now Tor is absolutely free, open source, and it is much faster than proxies. It's not faster than VPNs, but it is faster than proxies. It gives you an ability to torify your applications, which in essence means simply routing traffic through certain routes and using certain routers on the internet to actually, not just routers, but using certain devices on the internet for your packets, for your connection to go through. It can be slow from time to time. It is not a 100% guarantee, but you will be anonymous to a very large extent if you are using Tor. There are ways of detecting you, but they are highly unlikely to happen. Like 99.99% of time, you will be almost 100% anonymous, which is a very good way of functioning. Also, you have the Tor browser, which allows you to access dark web or the hidden web, however you wish to call it. Basically, those are .onion websites, and they are not indexed by any of the search engines out there, and they cannot be accessed via regular internet browser. From the regular internet browsing perspective, you cannot, I mean, if you open up Firefox and if you have your internet connection, and if you don't have your internet connection configured in a proper way to connect to Tor network or something of a kind, you will not be able to access any of the hidden webs or dark webs, website services, and so on and so forth. I will also show you how to access dark web and how to use it, as it has a vast amount of resources that are at your disposal, most of them free, some of them paid, and so on and so forth. Down below you have VPS. These are virtual private servers. It is a method of, it can be viewed as a security layer. For example, if you have an Apache server running on your physical machine, you can have a virtual machine within that physical machine which will serve as an SQL server for that Apache server. This is done so that the SQL server cannot be accessed from outside and that you don't have an SQL port open on your physical machine. So only devices, only programs and users from that particular machine will be able to access the virtual machine where the SQL server is. Bit of back and forth action here. It might sound unclear or something like that, but I don't want you to worry about it now. When I show you the examples, when you get into it, you will understand it. I guarantee it to you. So no problems there. Here, I'm just introducing you to the terminology and giving you an idea of what is to come. Excellent. So we also have keyloggers, which are tools that are used to steal credentials, and not only credentials, but also used to extract information. If you manage to deploy a keylogger on a machine, you can configure it to record all keystrokes and then to send them to a mail address, to an FTP server. Today, keyloggers are advanced to the extent that they have like 100 options or so, configurable to the fullest of extents, and you can do pretty much whatever you want with them. I mean, they have their basic functionalities still. Basic functionalities is still there to record the keystrokes, but not only do they record the keystrokes, for example, they can extract existing information as well. You can configure their behavior, how the stealth level of the keylogger, how will it hide, where will it go, where will it be installed, what sort of information do you want to extract, do you want to monitor particular folders for activity, and do you want to record it. You can configure them to take screenshots, you can configure them to use the camera on the device which you have deployed a keylogger to take a picture every 5 minutes or something like that. That wouldn't be the brightest of ideas, because obviously somebody would see that you're taking a picture. But those are just examples of what you can do with them, and later on we will actually download the genuine keylogger, install it, deploy it. We'll show you methods of deployment and how you can configure it as well. Although you should be very careful from where you download your tools, such as keyloggers, uh, remote administration tools, rootkits, and so on and so forth, primarily because you never ever want to download a uncompiled binary file that is not open source, because you have no way of knowing what's in it, and you absolutely never want to run it on your computer. You might get what you want, a keylogger or something of a kind, but your computer might get infected with exactly the same keylogger that you plan to deploy somewhere, or with exactly the same rat that you intend to deploy somewhere. So that's not a very bright idea. You should use verified sources of such tools. I will show a few of them later on as I go over to the internet and download them. But I'm just making it very clear here that you should be very careful with these things. And one of the foolproof methods of doing this is actually configuring a virtual machine and doing this sort of activity on that virtual machine. So even if you get infected or something of a kind, it doesn't matter. It's a virtual machine. You can reinstall it anytime you want, very fast. Pretty much no information will be lost there. More importantly, the primary file system on your main physical machine will not be accessed from the virtual machine. Anyway, down below you have the terminal. So terminal is basically an interface for you that allows you to control your operating system. Now, Linux terminal is very powerful. We will be using it extensively. You will need to familiarize yourselves with it. I will familiarize you with it. I will teach you how to use it. To some people, it might seem a bit difficult or a bit tricky at first sight. There are a lot of commands to type in, how to memorize them all, what to use where, and so on and so forth. But believe me, there is a certain logic to it, and once you figure it out, everything just flies. I know by heart about 30% of possible commands out there regarding Linux terminals, and the rest I simply figure out with dash h or dash dash help. The system pretty much tells you everything you need to know. It helps you out to a great extent, and you are able to figure out a lot of things from just understanding the basic logic, how it works, and so on. Now there will always, of course, be arguments. I don't know, there'll be people saying, well, why would you use terminals? Why wouldn't you just use GUI tools or something like that? The simple answer is because they are not as nearly as powerful as the terminal tools are. Plus, terminal tools have far less dependencies, and most of the hacking tools are basically designed for the terminals. They don't have GUIs. A lot of them do have them these days, but I might go over them briefly at a certain point of time, because it is not, the GUI interfaces are not that relevant. When you figure it out how to do it on the terminal, you will automatically by default know how to do it with the graphical user interface for that particular program. Anyway, down below you have firewalls. Now, firewall in Linux is configured through IP table commands. You keep on passing arguments and configuring these firewalls, and this is one of the main reasons why you should not be using any distribution of Windows for this particular tutorial, to follow this tutorial. You will need to install as I said previously, you will need to install either a Linux virtual machine or create a dual boot or something of a kind. I will of course show how to do this and demonstrate it in great detail. But one of the main reasons, the firewalls are one of the main reasons why we can't use Windows for these sort of purposes. Uh, Linux firewall is open source, and it has a ridiculous amount of options. A ridiculous amount. I'm not kidding here. You can do with it pretty much whatever you want. You can close open ports, forward connections via ports or via IP addresses. You can just forbid certain protocols on certain ports or forbid certain protocols for certain IP addresses, do all manner of forwarding and redirection and so on and so forth. This is all available for free with a Linux firewall, whilst in Windows you will have some of these options, but most of them you won't, unless you, for example, buy a certain package or something like that, which is not something that we really want to do here. We want to keep this budget friendly, and we want to have a powerful firewall which can do pretty much whatever we want it to do. Now there'll be two ways of configuring this firewall, and if you are afraid of messing it up, don't worry about it, because most of the configurations that we will do will be short-lived configurations, so to say, primarily because all the configurations made to the firewall from iptables command, unless specified otherwise, will be temporary, and they will hold until the next system reset. There is a way to circumvent this, of course, and to configure the firewall rules in the configuration file directly, and thereby making the changes permanent, which is also one of the ways of doing it, but I don't generally prefer it. I prefer to have a script somewhere which you can run at any time, and it will configure your firewall by default. This is primarily because you won't have your tool set on a USB stick or somewhere online or something of a kind, and you have these quick scripts which you generate, and then they perform these tasks for you in an automated fashion. It's really simple. I will show you how to make these scripts. You do not necessarily need some advanced programming knowledge or anything of a kind. Basically, what these scripts are a list of Linux terminal commands, which we will do anyway. So basically, the script would consist out of a list of those commands, and then you just change the mod of the script to be an executable file, run it, and all those commands are passed to the system, and those tasks are finished in an automated fashion by default. Anyway, one of the final things that I wish to address here are reverse shells. So there are hundreds, if not thousands, of reverse shells out there that you can use. I will pick a few that we will use depending on the framework, depending on the environment, of course, that we want to infect. But in essence, what reverse shells are, as the name itself says, you have a program with which you infect another device, and then that program opens up a reverse connection from that device back to you. So you can keep on passing commands, you can keep on controlling the system even though you are nowhere near it. There are different types, of course, today with routers and so on and so forth. With such firewalls, you do need to do a lot of extra configuration, and there are problems that need to be solved and addressed. You will see how when you are trying to break into a single computer, sometimes you need to break into the router first. Usually, you need to break into the router first, unless you're performing these phishing sort of attacks or there's a web server or something of a kind running in the background. But attacking a private device, a private computer, which is usually what people do as preludes to bigger hacks because they want to extract some sort of information or something of a kind from, let's say, a company's employee that's a network administrator or somebody like that, they will one of the basic vectors would be to attack a home router, change the DNS settings there, and try to steal credentials in such a way, or put the computer in the DMZ of the router, the militarized zone, so that the router is no longer effective for that device. Rather, instead, it just forwards all traffic to that device regardless. So that can be, those are just some of the types of attacks that you can do, but reverse shells will depend on the choice of the environment that you are trying to infect, and will depend on the choice of your attack route as well. In any case, I hope that you got some basic introduction to these terms. I again repeat, if you didn't figure it out all immediately, don't worry about it. We will do all of this in great details with a lot of examples, and you will understand it. It's not complicated. Do not allow fear to dissuade or stop you. Just keep on going in spite of it, and if you can just stick in till the end of this course, you will, I guarantee it to you, you will understand it. With just a bit of focus and a bit of curiosity, you will be able to obtain the necessary skills needed in order to become a pen tester or an ethical hacker. I bid you all farewell, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial.
Thank you for watching the beginning of this video. Ermin has walked you through an introduction to ethical hacking, what it is. Ermin's explained the prerequisites for getting the most out of this, and Ermin's went through the basic terminology with you. At this point, it's time to build your actual hacking environment. To do your installations with VirtualBox and make your virtual environment that will give you a safe way to try out everything Ermin has explained to you. Now, this is the part where the course gets difficult. Up until now, you can passively watch and listen as Ermin explains many of these concepts. But this part of the course requires you to start doing things. It requires you to start trying things. And if I've noticed one thing consistently in the course discussions, it's that people start having trouble at this section, at this part of the material. So, what you can do to get help is to enroll in this course on Udemy. Ermin is not available to answer questions on YouTube because there just are so many questions that come with this. You can see question after question after question posted in the Udemy course, and Ermin just goes through and answers them. You can count on Ermin to answer every single question you have when you are enrolled in the Udemy course. So all you have to do that, the course is $199 on Udemy. Now you can go buy it straight off of Udemy if you want to. I recommend, if you want to get it for the best price, to go straight to my website and grab a $25 coupon. You just go to jerrybanfield.com/Udemy, and I'll make sure to gratuitously feature this on the video. And then once you go there, you just click on the coupon that gives you access to the penetration testing and hacking course. That right now is in the trending, but it might be somewhere else on the actual page. You'll see I have a lot of courses up on Udemy, And this is the course you're previewing right now. And so you go up, once you've clicked on the coupon, you can see it's only $25 instead of $199. All you have to do then is click on Take This Course, sign into your Udemy account if you already have one, or sign up for a Udemy account to take the course, and then complete your payment. Then you can take all 17 hours of the course instead of just taking 4 of it or so on YouTube. You can also get your questions answered. But if you don't want to go pay for the course right now, the good news is you can keep getting this free preview right now. The next section will walk you through setting up your hacking environment and then introducing you to the Linux terminal. So you get a ton more free preview of this course now. And I'm honored you're here, and thank you for watching this.
Hello everybody and welcome to this tutorial. Today I will be talking about our working environment. I will show you how you can set it up. So first off, we need to install VirtualBox. Now it doesn't matter if you're running Mac OS X, Linux, or Windows, you will still need to do this for several reasons really. First of all, I mean, we're going to be doing a lot of stuff and we're going to be doing it as root. So we are always facing the prospect that we might break something, that we might mess something up, and it's just better to have that virtual machine, because even if you do mess something up and even if you don't know how to fix it, it doesn't really matter. It is only a virtual machine. You don't really have any data of importance on it. However, if you mess something up on your main machine, that can be problematic. If you're forced to reinstall it or something of a kind, then you need to back all your data up, you need to figure out where everything is, etc. Or you can try fixing the problem, and depending on what that is, it could consume a large amount of your time. So just take my advice for it and go ahead and install VirtualBox. It's not that complicated, it's pretty simple. I'll show you how to do it in a minute. There is another reason why we're installing a virtual machine, and that is safety. We're going to be downloading a lot of stuff from the net, and even though I will be using sites that I consider to be safe and that a lot of other people consider to be safe, it is always good to have that extra layer of protection. So even if something happens on your virtual machine, even if it gets compromised or something of a kind, it's fine. It's a virtual machine. No problems there. There's nothing of importance there. Your private information is not there. Your credit card is not there. There is literally nothing there aside from the tools that you are using that can be obtained from the internet anyway. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and see how VirtualBox is installed. Now there are two ways of doing this. One is preferable over the other. So the first method is a lot simpler. So you can just go ahead, open up your favorite browser. Mine is Firefox. Use your favorite search engine. Type in VirtualBox. Press enter, and there you go. Straight off the bat, you have official site VirtualBox. Just gonna go ahead and open it. In the left corner, it says about screenshots. There's a download of documentation here. For the time being, there really isn't any need to go over it. Rather, instead, just click downloads. Excellent. So here you have a list of host machines. Have VirtualBox for Windows hosts, for OS X hosts, for Linux hosts, Solaris hosts. Actually, for Solaris, you can just use it from the repositories immediately. But for the time being, we cannot use the repositories. We need to configure them in Linux, and repositories in Linux are places from where you pull your software for your Linux distro. Anyway, we will need VirtualBox for Linux hosts. I have already downloaded it in order to save time in this tutorial, but you just click on it and then it pops. So you have these guys are amazing. They have this virtual machine manager set up for multiple Linux distributions. So you have Ubuntu, you have Debian. Not sure why they actually separated Ubuntu and Debian, but it doesn't really matter since Ubuntu is based on Debian. Pretty much everything that works in Debian will work on Ubuntu as well. You have OpenSUSE. Wow, we even have the enterprise. But for the time being, I'm interested in Fedora. And even though Fedora 21 came out and it says here Fedora 18, that's perfectly fine. It's gonna run no problems. Anyway, right next to it, you have i386 and AMD 64. What these markations mean? Well, basically, they're just references to 32-bit and 64-bit architectures. If you do not know what your machine is, whether it's 32-bit or 64-bit, well, no problems there. Just go ahead and open up your terminal, type in uname space dash a, press enter. You don't need to be root to do this. You can do this as pretty much any user, and you get a listing of information here. So you have Linux platform, local host, that's the domain. You have the version of the kernel and Fedora distribution as well. It's number 20. And then you have the architecture. So it's x86 underline 64. There we go, 64-bit architecture. Fantastic. Now that we have established that, you can actually go ahead and click on it. If you're using a 32-bit one, just click on the 32-bit one. The procedure is absolutely the same. There are literally no differences. It gives me an option to save a file, so just click save and then click OK. That will download the file for you in the default downloads folder, unless you've configured it in a different fashion. I'm just going to go ahead and cancel it because, as I said, I've downloaded it previously in order to save some time in this tutorial. So just cancel. Go back to your terminal. Now clear the screen. You will need to be root in order to do this. So just type in su, press enter, and type in your password. And of course, I got my password wrong. I'm quite famous for doing this. I don't know why, but it's fine when I forget my passwords. When I forget my encryption keys, that can be a bit of a problem. Anyway, there is a tool for managing RPM packets. As this is a Red Hat distro, all the packets, software packets for it, have an extension .rpm. Here, let me just go ahead and show this to you. I'm going to go ahead and create a bit of a bigger zoom in so you can all see what I am doing here. Now, I am currently using the terminal, and I will give more detailed explanations. I will instruct you on how to use it. I will explain pretty much all the commands that we will be using in great detail, but for the time being, just tune in and follow through. So there's a command ls, and then I want to go to the folder downloads. So chronic, that's me, that's the username, downloads, and oops, VirtualBox, there we go. Press enter. I'm just going to go ahead and clear the screen one more time. There we go. Got exactly the same thing, but a bit better looking. Anyway, you see this extension that I have marked. It says .rpm. Now, .rpm represents a type of packet that I stated previously that is meant specifically for certain Linux distributions, such as Red Hat, Fedora, CentOS, and a few others. What you can do is use your default RPM software. So just type in RPM space -i. -i argument is for install, and then specify the path to your package. So home, chronic, downloads, VirtualBox, and press enter from here. Now again, this process is automated. There isn't much that you need to do here. Maybe press yes and that's it along the way. But in any case, this is not the method that you should be using. This is the method that I'm showing that you can use, but I wouldn't advise, as if you do install it like this, it tends to break with newer updates, so it can be a bit problematic. I will show you another method in the next tutorial where you can actually use yum, which is the default packet manager, in order to install this packet and then update it accordingly. In any case, I bid you farewell, and I'll see you in the next tutorial where I'll pick this up. Hello everybody and welcome to this tutorial. Today I will show you another more reliable way to install VirtualBox. If you are wondering why on earth did I show you the other way using the RPM if we're not going to use it here, well, it's always good to have another option. Plus, the procedure is exactly the same if you're installing any other RPM package. So you just type in rpm-i and then you just type in the name of the package that you have downloaded and that you wish to install. The procedure is exactly the same. I would recommend passing an H argument as well to give you a status bar, because if you just go ahead and type it in like this within the name of the package, uh, it's going to install it no problems, of course, but the screen is just going to wait. Nothing is going to happen. You might think it's bugged or something like that during the installation procedure. Like this with H, there's a status bar that shows, so you know that something in the background is happening. But as I said, it's good to have another option. What we want to do today and now is actually install VirtualBox using the default packet manager called yum and pull the package from the repositories. Now, what are repositories? Repositories are places where software packages are stored for Linux distros, and then you can pull those packets, those software packets, from your Linux distro using the default packet manager. It's very simple, it's extremely easy, and it's one of those things that you will absolutely need to know how to do, because you'll be installing and uninstalling a lot of things during the course of your pen testing career, during the course of pretty much any pen testing exercise in general. So let me just demonstrate this to you. You type in yum and then you give it a command. First of all,